Right. Roundtable discussion number 8. We are going live with more information on what we have shared previously. Just to give you a recap of previous episodes and where you should start. Of course, we started with episode 1, 2, 3, 4, discussing finance aspect of it, multiple side of financing, necessarily starting with the MLOps, right, which is the very technical term, but it's just pretty much defining the life cycle of the project that is machine learning focused and AI deliverable. So if you have MLOps and if you have the services that you need and you are able to identify it through a version iterations, cost of those versions, cost of sustaining those versions over time, and then adding more version as you go is what we focused in original first few episodes. And then we delve into large language models specifically. We talked about some of the cost benefit analysis of large language model lifecycle. So if your focus is large language model, if your focus is AI, if your focus is MLOps, wherever it is, I think we all can agree that finance is the biggest factor of them all, not necessarily today, but as in just down the road. Just down the road means once you get started, before you are even able to audit or qualify or do a quality check of your development, you have spent a lot of your energy, a lot of your focus, and a lot of your investment into that development, the requirement gathering, data acquisition process, your data discovery, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of financing involved. So of course we focus on the finance piece right off the bat because that's what just made sense. And we slowly deviated into understanding the use cases, some of these pros and cons of picking the use cases, what's coming down the pipeline with AI machine learning development. We'll talk a little bit about neural network. Of course, we're expanding this topic. Now, today's episode might feel a little bit more vague, actually, because it's talking about the business value without really dissecting into a single use case. We can look at multiple use cases, and that goes back to these version iterations, right? Let's say, for example, you want to start big, and we will talk about a big bad AI project, right? Or you just have that budget to say, I just need a proof of concept to wow my colleagues, wow my leadership team, wow the decision makers in the finance side of my operation. These all matters in all levels, right? The use cases are where either you will find the success or you will lose the interest, right? And you really want to be strategic with your use cases. You necessarily don't want to confuse everybody with all the high-level use cases. You really want to get them to be excited about the use cases they're maybe more familiar with or the biggest pain point, right? When you are understanding the business value, and as you understand this business value, how do you strategically implement them for your business adoption purposes? And your business is ready to adopt artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions. You guys have that comfort level at this point. You trust that you are with it, or have somebody from outside come in and develop and implement it, or you just say no development required. We just want to subscribe and implement it. Whatever the case is, you always have to look for the value that each use case will bring and prioritize each use case. So we have multiple things to discuss. Like I said, it's more actually vague because when you talk about finance part of things, you can put few hundred thousand, few millions, and figure out how to reverse engineer from that, right? So when you're looking at the value add, it's a wider spectrum, right? The spectrum of finance could be that, this is the amount you have. There's no more, no less, right? This is the amount you have to work with. But when you're talking about business value, and then you go strategic business value, then you have to really think, how vague is it, and how do I narrow it down to a point that it implies today's operation rather than the future operation? And there is a link between the future operation and current day operation. Be it that, if I just give you a quick example, every business has a business logic. So today's business logic is not necessarily as simple as it should be. It is still complex, and every business logic is complex. And here we are discussing a topic that today's business logic will require this use case, and the future business logic will require this use case. How do we tie the thread here? How do we connect the dot? How do we find the data pipelines that we have established today, the data acquisition process that we have today, will actually be relevant in the future use case or future business logic? It's really is a topic where we have to sit down and discuss, because what's happening a lot is that there are drivers of these use cases and there are followers of these use cases. And drivers doesn't necessarily have your business interest in mind, your operations in mind. It's just that they think this is what's available and this is what we will use, but not necessarily strategically thinking it out loud to say, this is what will be available in coming days, and this will add more value than current day availability. So really is a tailored and personalized solutions that you have to focus on. And once you do that, you really see a complex set of use cases that you can adapt to. And as you go through the rabbit hole, let's say, for example, you and your team sit down in a boardroom, in a conference room for 8 hours straight. I can almost guarantee you what looks good the first hour, second hour, third hour. You probably want to spend the next 5 hours trying to figure out how to notch that use case down to a point that it looks irrelevant. And then you start finding more use cases. And my hope is that, within that good 8 hours spent, not only did you learn something about your business operations through the eyes of your colleagues and eyes of the other participants, of the business data owners, the business process owners, to say, oh, what I knew at the beginning of this 8 hours versus what I know 8 hours later is two different business actually, right? And I think that's a win by itself. No matter how many use cases you decide on, if you are able to destroy the use cases that you think everybody was okay with, I will applaud you for going through that painstaking process and actually doing your due diligence. And this due diligence is what stops a lot of these AI from actually being deployed once it has been developed. The development is an exciting part of the AI MLOps. It's just that deployment part is where everything falls apart. And if you were to look and research some of the research services and their data on how many AI machine learning development does not end up deploying, I think you'll be shocked. I think you will be actually feel a little bit more comfortable to the fact that it is not that simple. What's been talked about and what's been deploying, it's not that simple. It's not necessarily all about budget. It's about that due diligence as well. Due diligence is where a lot of the development actually have to go back to phase one of that requirement gathering and start all over again. But with a smart phase one requirement gathering, you're able to pivot your development and improve on that development right on the fly. So we'll keep this discussion sort of like limited today. I don't really want to take too much of your time, but I just want you to kind of walk you through some of these points that I've written down. And these writings are pretty much just for your visual, but I'll try to keep a case study in mind for each of these topics as we go through them. So when you have a business goal, right? Be it that business goal could be quarterly, depending on the industry you're in, or it could be that 5-year life cycle. So if you're in a manufacturing or logistics, you really have to look at it from, yes, quarterly is fine, but how do I survive the next 12 months? How do I survive that next 60 months? And what happens to my financing, right? In let's say, for example, if I'm picking a case study in the industry specifically, it's required that you keep tabs of every project lifecycle you go through. Not necessarily the MLOps, not necessarily the machine learning operations, but this whole project that you will have cradle to grave, where you will have all the pieces come in and delivered. Well, that's one part of the equation, right? You have your acquisition and you have your deliverables. If you were to look at from the data perspective, that also applies to the fact that you have to do your data acquisition and you have to deliver. And deliver for how and what and why would you deliver? That's a question that ultimately becomes really a matter of your survivability, because a lot of the software experience that we have on implementation for the data acquisition purposes or IT management perspective became life and death situation for a lot of the manufacturers, because a short-term gain did not align with the business goal of 60 months life cycle, right? It created more problem on the third and fourth iteration, because what worked for the first 12 months is not necessarily what was needed for next 36 months, right? And then if you were to say, what's the answer to what, instead of applying machine learning and AI to everything, how do we pick a simple use case that fits your business goal? Going back to manufacturing, manufacturing continuously have to have funding, right? I'm using the simple words here, but the point is you always have to have the funding available for the next 90 days or next 60 days. And you have an Excel sheet full of Excel sheet gurus that will go through all this listing and say 90 days out, we'll have to apply for a loan. 90 days out, we have to borrow money. 90 days out, we have to get the funding approved, so on and so forth. Wherever that's funding coming from, you have an Excel sheet. And I believe if you're to look at that use case of Excel sheet, that's a good start point of the discussion. Because if you were to look at, your manufacturing shop floor activities, and then you're looking at your data activities, and you're saying, well, there's a lot of use cases, but if I was to start here, how does that help and improve the growth of my organization? So if your business goal is to remain funded for all the projects that you have stacked, how do you remain funded, and then how do you keep that the balance? I'm trying to look for the right word here. You have your balance that meets your business need continuously, right? I always use this example. I always put this use case up front to say, it's not a matter of the shop floor or the data that you have available and the data that are always in motion, right? Some data that not everybody sees could be a good use case. Could be a good use case that in a silo, you're testing out what you can start researching for AI machine learning development purposes. And this Excel sheet could be a very good place to start, because what you can do is look at your historical data and take that historical data and run it with the actual scenarios, right? So if you're developing a machine learning use case, these are some of the use cases that wows a lot of the decision makers, wows the finance guys, wows the other colleagues of yours that will say, you know what, these things are important in the shop floor level where things are moving, their cameras and the data that are getting, data that are in motion in and out of the factory. These are all impressive stuff. But before we engage with these, wow, that Excel sheet really does make sense, because all the financing that happens to the Excel sheet is what allows the shop floor data to shop floor activity to continue and data to flow through, right? So I think when we're looking at the justifying these costs, justifying these AI machine learning researchers, you really want to tap into something similar to that. Wherever you have most data available, archived and out of sight, out of mind, you really want to utilize and tap into this. Say, how do we identify the process from this archive data, and then train based on this archive data, as in you make a copy of this data and train on them, and to say, like, can machine learning mimic the actual decisions that happen in the real world, right? So you are working with the archive data, your historical data, not necessarily something that is ongoing in the shop floor or the flow of data for that shop floor activities. Significant ROI is not necessarily a monetary value. If your OpEx is decreased, as in your competitors are still operating for $1 million a month expense, and here you are operating the same level, but your operation expense is down to $700K or $500K, that's an ROI, in my opinion, right? That's a good ROI. Now, if you were to say ROI, where else can it be outside of monetary value? Well, what about return on data, right? So say, for example, if you are, getting better data sets that are coming to you because of your AI machine learning implementation effort, here you have a good return on data because the data that you're gathering is a little bit more expanded versus what you actually collected before AI machine learning research, right? So if you're collecting more data and these data sets are giving you a visual on a dashboard that you previously didn't have, that's a one set of return on data. But you could have that other data sets that are coming in now that you're able to do better and more machine learning solution, more research, more capability development because of those return on data. So not necessarily monetary, but it could be that you have better return on data using your AI machine learning efforts. So we talked about a budget and we talked about upscaling in previous episodes between episode 1 to 7. Really want to emphasize again, what matters is people, right? And the process that happens before anything that is technology, solution, or services, right? The people process technology, people process solution, people process services, people process whatever that equation is. It's the process that people are involved in, and who is involved in that process matters. And specifically to me, and I believe there's a lot of people out there believe the same, that process is what matters. If you have right people engaged with the process, they will deliver amazing products, amazing services, amazing technology, amazing solutions. I have no doubt about it. So when you have talent that you have to worry about, and you have a budget for talent, and these talent is very empowered by knowledge, they are motivated by the technology, they're motivated by the output that they will produce through their efforts, I think people process is a great start. So if you have the budget, put some away for the talent, put some away for the upscaling, put some away for the training purposes. And the best part that we discussed out of all 8 episodes of the roundtable discussion is the fact that if you upskill your talent pool today, you adopt artificial intelligence in-house. So I want to draw a comparison between what has happened for the last 30 some years in software development and IT infrastructure development and website development, the IoT side of things, Internet of Things that we've been experiencing, is that it was really about the talents. But what happened for the last 30 years is that you had talent pools, and this talent pool was dedicated for a specific task, and they were able to accomplish that. So if you look at the full layout of a business environment, and then you were to look at the each silos are logics that just worked because the talent pool was able to jump from logic to logic, silos to silos within the business landscape, and say, we took care of everything within the business, within the logics, and these logics are connected by threads. As in, if this logic works, this logic kicks in, and this logic works, this logic kicks in. So if you were to look at it from that perspective, this talent pool really did their job, but every time there was an issue within one of the silos, the talent pool had to be stretched thin in order to support these solutions, previous implementation. So they lost focus over time, and this talent pool had to grow, shrink, lose their original knowledge that was there when the implementation began, and by the time implementation ended, the people has changed. Nobody was really upskilled. Nobody really knew within the silos how to maintain this implementation. With AI, it becomes that much more riskier, because whatever implementations that is happening, you really have to know who knows what and how what they know impacts your AI machine learning implementation. So yes, you can have a very good use case, very well processed implementation, yet your talent pools are not dynamic, probably are very siloed. That's not the case anymore in AI machine learning side of things. Now, the other aspect of it, that you don't have that much time to upskill everybody. And that's the difference between IT technology, the logics that we've implemented for years and years at this point. The difference today is that we do have a time frame that is favorable to the obstacles of time and upskilling. As in, you can upskill faster and quicker today than you were able to do before in IT technology. How do I say that? I really think you should go check out some of those episodes that we've discussed upskilling and financing for those upskilling purposes. What I would like to say, just in a simple statement, is that for AI to be upskilled for AI purposes, these upskilling using your in-house use cases, not necessarily use case that is very universal. Everybody's researching it, everybody's learning from it. That's not what you want to do, because you have a shortage of time. And with AI, you can actually use have your use case be taught in a short period of time is a reality, and you want to capture that. Because if you were to go about it in other ways, as in have your work pool, your talent pool go off to another business, to a school, or to another environment to learn about their use case, and come home and try to work on your use case, that's a lengthier process that eats up a lot of your time. And in the AI time space, every day matters, every hour matters for your adoption purposes. So really what you have to do is take your talent pool, grow that talent pool in-house using your in-house use cases, upskill them based on those use cases, and capture a shorter time frame, because AI machine learning allows an individual to learn faster if you give them the right sort of questions. If there's right amount of prompts, right amount of business knowledge, you will be able to upskill a lot faster. So unlike the previous upskilling within each logic and each silos, you really are able to upskill faster, because the time has changed where we are able to upskill for AI much faster and much easier. I want to hit on the big bet AI projects right off the bat, because big bet AI projects, we are hearing a lot about these big bet AI projects, is because really we want to keep up with the competitors, right? And the competitors are boasting their capabilities and services and supports that they provide through AI. And of course, they are able to highlight the success of these capabilities. So when you have a project that is just within your eyesight and it's very attractive, really you can use that to motivate your talent pools, right? To say, like, I'm giving you a challenge, I'm giving you the budget, and I really want you to go out and make this happen. How do we go about doing that? I think it's very energizing, has lots of energy built in when you are going after this such a massive project, right? The project that says, like, we will implement it and we'll fix it as we go, but that's okay. That's the type of risk that we're willing to take. So for the big bet IT projects, AI projects, I would say really you have to consider the fact that if you are able to minimize the damage by monitoring and triggering, and majority of your response, majority of your effort goes into understanding what happens after you deploy the solution, what happens after it's productionalized, and that's once out in an environment and is interacting with the environment itself, how can we monitor and trigger based on this feedback that we receive? And we are able to not only do we achieve a great deployment, but we are also able to really keep the cost down in the deployed environment. Because one of the things that really I emphasize on is that the development cost is very little compared to what happens after you productionalize it. Once you productionalize an AI system, the cost really can shoot up to a point that development seems like a smaller budget compared to what happens in production environments. So keep that in mind. And I think when you are in your cost benefit analysis, be really, really articulate in the fact that it's not about development costs, it is about maintaining that cost. So when you have a strategy that you want to showcase, trying to make sure the alarm goes off. So your impact on the business, it's not necessarily measurable using IT projects from previous decades, right? This is something that is exponential. Either it will really grow really, really fast, or it will stall really, really fast. But if it stalls, what are your measures? What are some of the part of your implementation that you have that helps with that stalling to sort of incrementally improve itself, right? What sort of measurements can you do? So even if you have a big budget to implement, really focus on that piece where once you get a go and no go on your use case, really want to make sure that if it does stall, how do you have some measurements for monitoring and feedback gathering that you are able to add more value and have that AI actually get up to a point where the user feedbacks are coming in, the user satisfactions are increasing, and then the interfaces are dynamic enough that people are actually engaging with it in a correct manner. So I've had lots to talk about, but in 30 minutes, this is almost impossible. So always keep in mind that be strategic with your AI implementation. It's not like any other IT project implementations that you've run through with your team. So if you guys are comfortable, really pick your research group and say, who's really good at statistical analysis? Who's really good at all these data engineering process? Who's really good at the data acquisition part of things? Really go through that interview and make sure you are able to have a confidence in your people and incorporate these people into the process that you really want to develop. Maybe let them drive, because sometimes we get myopic view of the process, the deliverable that we have. With AI machine learning, you really want to be flexible and dynamic with your teammates, because some of the things that you might think you know everything about, somebody else could augment you in that knowing, and make sure you have the strategic view, and everybody in your organization can articulate those strategic views and work reverse engineer from there and implement a solid functional AI system that you could be really proud of. We went live with our website, AxeGenAI. Feel free to check out the website, and if you're interested in discussing this topic more and in person or just through text, we're always here. We are pretty much consulting for free at this point, because our customers, the relationship that we want to develop, we are really looking for a long-term relationship here. So now that our website went live and we're looking for these long-term relationship, we would like to see where it is that it starts, be it in text, be it on a phone call. We're open to it. But for now, at this point in AxeGenAI's history, we're consulting for free, because this is a long-term project for us, where we would like to do R&Ds, and we would like to help organizations develop a process for a lifetime, and we would like to see where that relationship starts. So visit our website. You can set up a time there for us to meet, and if you're more comfortable with texting and just phone call, feel free to do so, and we can go from there. With all that, I hope you learned a few things and you are ready to take some actions, and you're ready to move forward with this hype cycle of artificial intelligence. And we were looking forward to seeing you on the other side. Take care. Bye-bye.